into the week with this perspective of auctioning down, testing the bottom of this multi-day balance, hopefully finding bid somewhere in proximity to this 44 to 55 area, which was TPO point of control, volume point of control from the island day that launched us up. And we talked about this pattern that's repeated multiple times over the last handful of months, and that is, pop up, balance, fall back, and we're basically testing kind of where we gapped from, and where we left this abandoned value and rotated higher to look for balance and value higher. And we've done this a couple times. One thing I like about how we did it yesterday is that we didn't hold this any of these levels perfectly. So if you've watched my TPO video, I talk about um, I talk about like a weak reference, and a weak reference would be something that is very market generated specific, like we go to the tick and then we bounce. And so this does not leave behind a weak reference, nor does it leave behind a poor reference. This is a good low. It doesn't have a ton of excess, but has just enough, maybe just enough to kind of frustrate some people or whatever. But that's good enough, right, for me. So I think we did the business lower that at least yesterday we needed or wanted to do. We left behind a very nice LVN on the volume profile yesterday, just below 675. So coming into today, we would love to see continued exploration higher of this prior um, balance area. I would say the balance area trade is in full effect, and that balance area rotation trade is intact. And that trade is to rotate through. Well, we have this LVN here in the middle of the value of this consolidated profile from this multi-day balance. We have a poor high, and we have a poor low in Globex, which is hilarious. So generally speaking, the idea is like, oh, there's a poor high or a poor low, let's go clean it up. And sometimes, depending on the context of the market and where we are in the bigger picture, that may give me the attitude to go clean it up or something like that. But I try to not get too hung up on things like that. As you can see, we have this gray line is a poor high that has been a poor high for a long time. A long time. That poor high has been hanging out up there. So, being that it's Globex, and being that I'm leaning towards, this value trade that we talked about, this rotation through balance, I'm not super worried about it. I would anticipate us finding some support if we pull back in this 760, 780 range. That would be holding the bottom of this value area of the balance. It would also be holding yesterday high somewhere in there. Makes a lot of sense. Um, uh, we have like pending home sales and one other random something. What is it? Yeah, just pending home sales at 10 a.m. Eastern, and then crude oil inventories at 10:30 Eastern. But tomorrow we have GDP quarter over quarter, unemployment, um, and Yellen speaks not till the end of the day. But at 8 o'clock and 8:30 a.m. Eastern tomorrow, we have some news. So would be cool for today to be, a continuation trade, rotate up, test the top of value from this distribution, even test a little higher. If we test here, I do expect some resistance initially. We'll look at a 1 hour chart to kind of see some of the structure that's in that area as well. But this 930, 950 will probably be a little bit difficult. This orange line is the volume point of control for this whole area. So that's something to pay attention to. Would be a spot to peel some profit if we're moving up, for me at least. Um, so scenario like three scenarios. Scenario one, like pull back, find support, and go, which makes the open precarious because you would be shorting, or I would be shorting only to find a bid and then rotate higher. So Careful on the open to the downside, because to me, the downside, like a support trade down, makes a lot of sense. So most bullish would be something like that, or a fairly bullish scenario would be something like that, pulling down and go. We could give up overnight low, pull back into this 700, 713, 720, test the top of value from yesterday. We could pull down and test TPO point of control. The line in the sand is this 675 spot still. So this is what can kind of catch people off guard. If we were to rotate down to 675, I would be pretty bullish in this area, anywhere inside of this, for a push back up. So I don't want to. I would be careful. I want to be careful and nimble if I were short coming into 675, because what could catch people off guard is heavy selling into here. Bid shows up for this value trade, and then catch a lot of people off guard, rotate back up. So that's another scenario. Now, if we leave balance again, if we leave this multi-day balance, you start getting slippery below this 640, 640, 660 spot. To me, 530s comes into play pretty quick, structurally. Um, we could also trend off of this with this setup like this. I'm sure that each session was rotating higher, auctioning higher, while we do have a gap, slightly, I think. But we definitely have this poor low. We could open in range, no trade, no tick below the OR, hold this upper distribution of overnight, and then go straight up for 80 points to clear, to challenge here and then here. Another scenario to be mindful of. So we've built a couple now. This pull back here and go, pull back all the way to the bottom and go, pull down, lose this, back test it, go much lower, and then the OR clean trade higher is a possibility. With news tomorrow, I could really see us just rotating inside of like the primary distributions, value, and balance, which would really frustrate a lot of people, for us to just kind of zigzag in this area with no, like, not accomplishing anything. And the market may be setting up to wait for more information, which we'll have tomorrow morning. So I'd be a little bit on guard today, with where we're opening, kind of in the middle of this value and balance and stuff like that. I just maybe a little smaller size, and waiting for a little better, like A plus type setups. But ultimately, I would be leaning bullish today, just based on the fact that we tried to escape this value imbalance, and we didn't, and we rotated back up, and we're being accepted back inside. The higher we go on this profile, the more volume we're building, which shows that there's still business to be done as we move higher. All of those things kind of lean me towards bullish. I'm sure that banks will post an inventory snapshot of overnight, and you're going to have some cool spots around 8:15 to take a trade. You're going to probably have some cool spots around 780 to take a trade. Probably going to have some cool spots around 760 to entertain a trade. So there's a couple of spots here where you'd be watching for delta and speed of tape and stuff like that, large market orders to confirm a pullback, like a gap pullback, and then go. But also be on guard for that quick ripper right off the open. So that's from a TPO perspective. Let's jump over here to our 1 hour chart. Um, I'm trying to get more methodical about how I draw this out, so that when people look at it, it makes a little more sense. But like this white dotted line would be kind of a key spot. So like 811, which 811 would be pulling down to like uh, the bottom edge of the second distribution of volume from overnight. That would also be pulling back and re-establishing this as support, which we did like in this area, and then we fought for it and got it here. So also was this low that brought you up, to this high for this entire distribution. So a pullback to this area. We have some structure, from a 1 hour, although it's local. We haven't quite kicked it on by clearing these highs. Would watch for bid in there, and you can just see there's just a lot of interesting spots as we move down, both from a 20-day profile. We've got these LVNs here in the 750. We've got some negative delta here in this 740, 750 area. Um, the sellers at the very start of overnight kind of laid a little bit of an egg down there. If you go down and look at what the delta, what delta is present down there, there's five, 600 delta or so negative delta from 41 to 47. So it's kind of a mess down there. Um, and then the next like real heavy delta spot is in that again in that 800 815 spot right in here. With 170, 233, probably 300 negative delta spread over like a 10-point range in there. So, and then most locally, which is part of why this open could be pretty directional if these people get exposed, is with overnight and the delta from yesterday. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You've got probably 13, 1400 negative delta between 850 and 830. You can see it here. And so, to be honest, it kind of really could set up for that that one-way trade out of the open. And I would say that the one-way trade to the upside might be a little easier to get because of the idea of popping all these stops in a push higher. Um, so from an hourly perspective, you could screenshot this, or I could screenshot this, but you've got any purple solid lines or places I would pay close attention. Blue box is going to be kind of referencing some negative delta that's present, or a place that I would consider like a really smooth dip buy. And then pushing higher, anything that's a purple solid line, I would see as a spot to be cautious. This solid red line right here around 922 is right at the top of value for this balance area. So when you start pushing through this LVN and start challenging some of this, I would want to be lightened up into this area if I were long, because something in here is probably going to kick back down to test lower, unless we're just in a straight up trend day condition. And then, of course, the 13,084, 13,115, 13,130, and 13,280, all of those spots from the weekly plan are still targets that I'd love to see us clean up, moving much higher. From a 4-hour perspective, you can see that we slid into kind of this kind of cheeky spot with these 4-hour dojis that kind of do separate with this LVN here. They do kind of separate this, challenging this upper area with challenging back down to find buyers. So the last thing, I know this has been like 15 minutes. Hopefully you've watched to this point. But when the market is trying to move higher, we're moving higher on buyers, obviously, that are willing to put risk on as we move higher. So a lot of times when we pull back, the fear is, and a lot of traders, oh no, we're going down. I am of the opinion that when the market's moving lower, unless we have left, say, a balance area or some key spot, and there, but even then, like we're going lower, not because the world is ending or because of doom and gloom or whatever, unless it's something crazy with news. We're going lower because the market is searching for interested buyers. And so we see that in Delta when someone smacks a huge sell order and it gets absorbed by a ready and active or a passive buyer who's sitting there willing to buy. That's why Delta is so important to me, because it starts to tell me when people are getting interested to take part in the activity that's happening. So if we do pull back off of this, like we have found sellers, we've found, some people call it supply, we found resistance, whatever you want to look at it, we found the top of trend, whatever. But then the idea is to go down and rotate down and try to find buyers. Um, from a 4 hour perspective, this is sort of interesting to me, even somewhere in this 820, 830 spot, if I was going to be like super aggressive. Now, so rotating down to find buyers is a scenario that makes a lot of sense for me. Failing to lose or re-lose one of these spots um, could really, ignite the move up. The word of caution to the dip buy is this this area that I mentioned with all this negative delta. So I mean, the most bullish is holding above like 27 to 37. Stuff in these buyers that are absorbing here are right. All these market sales get absorbed, and then the rotation goes up. If we get on the other side of all these market sales, then we just know on the way back up that that's going to be a little bit of a job to try to get through, unless momentum is pretty strong and we just blast all those stops. So hopefully that's helpful. Really paying attention around 800 to 810. Really paying attention around 820s. Really paying attention around the 775s, and then again around 715. To the upside, cautious around 880. Cautious around 920. Cautious around 920, and then from a 1 hour perspective, um, cautious again around that 920, 940. Above that, we're just taking out kind of old hold stuff. So hopefully this is helpful. Sorry I can't be here. Gonna be hanging out with the kiddo and my wife, having a good time. So yeah, take it easy. I'll be checking in on Discord a little bit. Trade safe. Banks will be on, do his thing in a little bit. Check Ox's channel. What does the Ox say? He's going to throw some stuff in. I wouldn't be surprised if Flary doesn't throw a couple bones in for us as well today. So, all right, guys, take it easy. See you.